Bioethics has progressively developed in life sciences and health over the last several decades due to rapid progress in research and advanced medical therapeutics. Moreover, not everything medicine can do for patients necessarily means that everything should be done. The same logic applies to research as there are appropriate limits to the harms and wrongs on research participants, even if it may be highly advantageous to science. This caveat necessitates a careful balancing of scientific progress and the rights and welfare of research participants. As a result, national governments and international organizations have developed bioethical principles and guidelines for conducting research in an ethical manner. In the Arab world, clinical trial activity has fallen behind that in the Western world. Nonetheless, research in the Arab region has grown in recent years in an effort to address diseases that rarely occur in Western countries, such as malaria and tuberculosis, and conditions with high prevalence in the Arab region like asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease and obesity. Furthermore, the pharmaceutical industry has emerged as a major worldwide player in research. Pharmaceutical corporations are drawn to the Arab region because of the availability of vast naive populations that lack access to essential treatments, cheap labor and underdeveloped regulatory systems that lead to rapid drug approval at low prices. This is seen as an opportunity to reduce costs per research participants by shortening clinical trial duration through shorter site startup times and faster patient enrollment. Each country institutionalizes ethics based on its unique social, cultural, economic and religious context. It is impossible to dismiss religious and moral principles' influence on bioethics, despite some commentators emphasizing the secularization of ethics. This is particularly apparent in the Arab world where religion dominates most people's everyday lives. Understanding the significance of religious beliefs and teachings in the Arab world contrasts with the West's centuries-long secularization of ethics. As a result, individuals in the Arab world could feel uneasy with Western-style bioethical issues and instead favor those that are in line with their religious convictions.
The fabric of Arab societies does not have the same structure as Western ones. Even though there is a considerable variation in the Arab world, some prominent traits still help create similar social framework that views family as the foundation of society. In contrast to Western countries where the individual predominates. This could impact the informed consent process, which has its roots primarily in the basis of autonomy and emphasizes the concept of individual rights. In contrast, in the Arab world, there may be a need to move from the individual to the family or the community, as it may be necessary to secure the consent of a participant's family or social group in addition to or even instead of the participant's consent. Additionally, in the Arab world the consent form may be seen with increased sensitivity. For instance, gathering data about cigarette smoking may be more sensitive with Arab women than Western women. Moreover, it would sometimes be more practical to gain verbal consent in the Arab world as signatures to participate in research may be viewed with suspicion.
The local application of international guidelines fails to account for cultural, economic, social, religious, and political aspects that often influence research practice. Therefore, Arab countries need to promulgate national regulations. By formulating national guidance to avoid conflicting provisions of the international ones. It is particularly needed for the cultural context, to avoid controversy in interpreting and applying international guidelines in the cultural and religious contexts of Arabia. Developing research regulations will have the force of law and to legally enforce with legal and sometimes penal sanctions for non-compliance. Jordan, for example, was the first Arab country to enact clinical research regulations in its regulatory environment. It is among the most important potential markets for clinical trials in the Arab region. The Clinical Studies Law is the only document about clinical research in Jordan, taking the Declaration of Helsinki as a reference. In 2003, the Jordan Food and Drug Administration was established as an independent entity, to regulate and supervise medicinal products and medical devices. Plus, there are 22 approved IRBs in Jordan in the hospitals, institutions and CRO. However, many Arab countries do not have any national regulations for research involving human participants, including Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Palestine, Oman, Yemen, Algeria, and Libya. In Lebanon, deficiencies exist to have sufficient laws on human subjects protection. Clinical research is briefly mentioned in the Law of Medical Ethics, No. 288, issued in 1994, and renewed in 2012. It regulates the duties and ethics of medical practitioners in Lebanon. It discusses confidentiality and informed consent as essential requirements for medical practice. According to the Article 30 of this law, it is not allowed to conduct any clinical trial unless it provides a direct benefit to research subjects, and does not cause any harm or put them at risk. Informed consent is also mentioned. Nevertheless, Lebanon has been one of the leaders in the conduct of clinical trials since 1990. The number of studies with an open status at clinicaltrials.gov in April 2017 exceeded that of many countries in the Arab region. For example, many sites demonstrate a high recruitment rate, probably due to a strong trust relationship between patients and physicians. There is also a lack of health insurance coverage for many individuals and therefore, lack of access to high-quality medical care, which contributes to a desire for individuals to participate in clinical trials. That being said, these characteristics present potential concerns in regards to therapeutic misconception and undue. The establishment of research ethic committees or RECs is not where things end. These should be given legitimacy and authority by governing institutions, which makes ethical review mandatory. Furthermore, independency is crucial for any REC, from politics, local cultural influence, but also from their respective institutions. This can be achieved by setting up clear written rules for appointment and removal of its members, and inability of overruling its decisions by higher institutions. No entity can operate without resources, which can be financial or material, but also RECs should be held accountable for their actions. This can be achieved by continuous assessment through mandatory RECs registration, audits, internal or external, accreditations which can be financially draining, and most importantly self-assessment tools which are the easiest to implement. Ultimately, transparency is essential, and no review process can take place without it. Challenges faced by RECs in the Arab world are many. Along with the absence/inadequacy of national laws that regulate research may hinder the review process and most often results in ambiguous decisions without supporting grounds. Absent institutional support, which can be financial, authoritative, or legislative. Lack of training for members, diversity, based on gender, profession, culture, independence are all additional factors that make the ethical review process more challenging, seeing the political tension and financial capabilities of many countries in the Arab world.
Building capacity is necessary to enhance research ethics. Qualified members in ethical committees are a necessity, but adequate training can be hard to source. Many international institutions are offering training in ethical review for Arab scientists, such as the US NIH, UNESCO, Merity. However, this is not enough, as ethical research training should be implemented in local educational programs. Continuity is a very important aspect of training to keep up with the ever-evolving ethical sciences. In the Arab world, challenges to research ethics regulations are many. From a participant point of view, ethical regulation are scarce, often culturally insensitive and copied from the West. For instance, the West values the sense of autonomy, however in the Arab world it is not as important as family or collective well-being. Also, people can be uncomfortable to sign consent, hence there is a need for adapted regulations tailored from a researcher point of view. While viewing ethical review as essential, researchers shed light on the burden of the process, delays, bureaucracy, lack of familiarity and training of REC members, ambiguous review processes. This can be overcome by enhancing researcher REC's communication, training both, setting up local culturally sensitive guidelines for recruitment and ethical review.
Research ethics can be even more complicated in the Arab world, where financial restraints, rising conflicts and political tensions coexist. Existing regulations are scarce and, when found, often reflect Western approaches. Serious effort is needed to overcome the many challenges by legislating more detailed regulations that adapt the ethical practice of research to the Arab world, establishing a national regulatory oversight body to assure compliance of institutions and provide oversight to RECs, setting national research priorities before going through the process of ethical review, and registering clinical trials to track all clinical trials being performed in the country. National governments should invest in capacity-enhancing programs to maximize the effectiveness of their ethics programs, which includes functioning RECs, so that the protection of rights and welfare of research participants can be optimized. The national regulatory bodies should also establish minimum registration criteria for all of the RECs in their respective countries.